Are you tired of brands marketing at you like you're a computer, not a human? We believe there's more to this business than worshiping at the feet of the algorithm. We're three marketers, Matt Banker, Paige Worthy, and David Hepburn. Marketing can be empathetic, ethical, and effective, all at once. I am a fighter! This is Hello First Name, a marketing podcast for thinking, feeling humans. All right, we are back with another episode of Hello First Name, the podcast for thinking, feeling humans. Before we get started, you can find episode recordings, YouTube videos, transcripts, and a place to subscribe for email updates on the show on our website, which is hellofirstnamepod.com. I'm David, and we are three creatives in the marketing industry, and I am here with my fellow co-hosts.
I'm Matt Banker. I have an agency called Banker Creative. We design websites with the StoryBrand framework. And I have another agency called Benchmark Growth, which is marketing for accounting firms.
Overachiever. I'm Paige Worthy of Paige Worthy LLC. I am a StoryBrand certified guide and a radically empathetic marketer working with businesses that give a shit.
And I'm David Hepburn. I am the Chief Creative Officer at Hepburn Creative. We're a video production company and marketing strategy firm based out of San Diego, California, and we work with businesses and nonprofits to create videos and marketing strategy that encourage their audiences to take action. And we, all three of us, are here because we believe that marketing can be empathetic, ethical, and effective all at the same time. And that's really important right now because today on this episode, we're talking about marketing during times of tragedy and turmoil. And the reality is that right now, there is a lot going on around us. There are plenty of examples everywhere you look of tragedy and turmoil, even if it's not happening in our own lives. The really important thing that we as marketers have to remember is we're not marketing based on what's happening to us. We're marketing.
There's a whole wide world of
There is a whole wide world
awfulness
of other people experiencing things. Yes. And so, there's things going on all around us. Like here in the United States, there was the January 6th insurrection. There's mass shootings happening on the regular, particularly in Uvalde, Texas. There's police violence and white supremacy. And there's Supreme Court decisions like the overturning of Roe v. Wade. And so what we want to do, and Paige is going to take us into the deep dive about this, is we want to talk about the ick factor of marketing when the world is burning, and how to navigate that. And so, Paige, why don't you take us through some of that?
Great. So this is a topic that I have wanted to talk about from the very beginning when I was slow playing it a little bit to kind of get our feet under us because there's a lot to talk about within this topic. I think the first place to start is to recognize that as marketers and as businesses, we do not have to be just constantly selling ourselves, right? If you're working with clients, you're in a place in this current moment, whether social, economic, political, you're in a place to guide when it's appropriate to continue engaging. So there's a time to speak out about events. There's a time to go about business as usual, and there's a time to shut the fuck up, right?
Absolutely.
And so deciding...
Which might actually be one of the most important things to evaluate depending on who you are as a business.
Yeah, and I actually have in my notes, it's never bad to err on the side of STFU. Like, there are so many voices out there. There is so much noise.
Yeah. If
you can't say something that contributes to the discussion or the moving past or the healing or whatever, it's okay to sit this one out. It's totally allowed.
Paige, are you talking about like being quiet on an issue that you don't have anything to talk about, or are you talking about like just being quiet in general, like kind of going dark as a brand?
So
during those times?
the answer to that is yes. That's what I'm talking about. So and I'll get into that a little bit because there are sort of cascading levels of engagement during this time, and I think the first thing to consider, and hopefully this won't come across as flip, but we have to consider sort of the level of turmoil that we're experiencing, the height of the tragedy. You know, if you know, in the case of like 9/11 back in 2001, that was indisputably a national tragedy where essentially I think every business should have completely halted their marketing for a time. I was a freshman in college when 9/11 happened, so I have no memory of what marketers and what businesses did. Also, the landscape of marketing was a lot different. Like, did companies stop their direct mail campaigns? Like, I don't know. Because like social media basically didn't exist when I was a freshman in college. So, you know, determining, okay, how much is this affecting us as a society? How much is this affecting my direct customers? Really important things to consider. And then I think you have to think about how much is it affecting us? And then just think, how important is the initiative that I am looking to market? Like, how important is that to talk about right in this very minute?
Right.
And if we really take the time to think about it, the answer is probably not terribly, right?
Yeah.
So I think considering the level there, and then considering your audience. How are they affected by what's going on in the world? What is the lived experience bringing them up to this moment? You know, how triggered are they going to be? How affected are they going to be because of what's happened? You know, we talk about the psychographics of our audiences, what motivates them to buy, but understanding what motivates them in their lives. You know, if you have inroads to understanding that, that's insight to put into use. But basically, how can you show empathy toward them during this time?
And it feels like it's really easy to in the world of interactions that we have on a daily basis, whether that's in person with friends and family and the people within our immediate circles, or on the more expanded circles that we have of social media and the globalization that has taken place and the reach of our voice.
Yes.
I understand that for a lot of people, using a phrase like triggered has become really heavily loaded down.
Yes,
both
it has.
both with the meaning and the direct connotation of an attachment to guns, and also in the like socio-political way that we talk about being triggered, and
it has become very politicized.
Absolutely.
And I sort of like internally cringed as I was preparing to say that, but
but what's important,
but I couldn't think of another word.
Right, because what's important to think about is that in the same way that hopefully with our inner circle of friends and family, we are thoughtful in our responses to each other on the regular in all things, that same level of thoughtfulness needs to be brought into the words and posts and how you market as a brand during times of tragedy and turmoil.
Yep. And I think part of approaching marketing during times of turmoil and tragedy is giving it some thought before you're in a position where, it's time to figure out like, should we pause our automations? Should we make a statement about this? Take a step back. Maybe now, it's been a couple of weeks since since abortion rights started rolling back. It's been a couple months since the last like really bad mass shooting. Nobody stormed the Capitol in the last year. So really we're in pretty ace shape right now. So maybe now is a great time to evaluate what issues are your issues, either as a marketer thinking about your personal brand, a business leader, operating within the spheres of both your business and your industry, or whatever niche you exist in, and to your business itself. We're going to exhaust ourselves if we take a stand on every single thing. We're also going to give our audiences whiplash. For some people, maybe that works, right? Like maybe you actually do care deeply about all of these things and you want to try and hit every ball that comes your way.
Right.
That's not me, because my little empathetic brain would explode. So pick your battles, I guess. Like decide what issues do you as a business care about? Do the issues relate to your own personal moral standing, your sense of justice? Do they relate to what you're offering? Like, are they actually relevant to your mission as a business? Like, David, I know that refugee issues are massive for Hepburn Creative. And for me, like I'm one person, right? I am an intersectional feminist, abortion rights, racial justice, and other like pretty radical feminist issues like are really my bailiwick. So that's where I live. But that's not really directly related to the business that I do. And
Right.
Matt, I have to imagine there are certain things that you care a lot about that aren't just like I want accountants to account really well. Like
No, that's about it. The only issue I care about is math. For my no, it's a challenge. One thing I think about is you kind of have to choose what you care about. We are, as people, we care about a lot of different things, and we can also I think it's easy to get ramped up on any issue that comes out, right? We live in these algorithmic bubbles sometimes, and with the internet and the way the algorithms work, the stuff that comes to the surface and that we see, we could be constantly in like cause mode,
Yes.
and never get out of the marketing work or some of this other stuff that, I mean, truthfully, it's important. So understanding, there are times as people, as brands, or the brands that we're helping to market, you do need to say something, or you need to intentionally say nothing. But you want to be in a situation where you're not constantly reactive, because there's
Agree.
always going to be something to react to.
Especially
and as
now.
a brand. Yeah. As we were talking about this, I was just thinking, like, when can we have this conversation when it's not about a specific thing that just happened? And you mentioned, we're in a lull, maybe, this part of end of July in 2020.
Stated very, very sarcastically.
I was going to say, I don't know that's the reality is there's never a good time.
There isn't.
To start, it's kind of like what they say about, reforestation. We're getting ready to go do a video shoot with an org that does this, so it's fresh in my mind. But like the quote is, the best time to plant trees was 100 years ago, and the second best time to plant trees is now. And so the same is true in how you evaluate how to respond, how to market during turmoil and tragedy. Is the best time to have decided how to do it is already. But that isn't an opportunity to say, don't lose heart and say, well, forget it. There's no reason for me to do this then. It's too late. You can always, like, now is the time to start. And as you think about, like Paige said, figuring out what are the things that are important to you, both personally and as a brand, if you're sitting there thinking, I don't know what I'm passionate about, or I don't know what issues I care about, just know that you're not the only one feeling that way. Because for as passionate as we are as a brand at Hepburn Creative, and as passionate as I am as a person about the issues of refugees and immigration in the United States, 4 years ago, I had no idea that was such a passion. And I sat there in a conversation and said, I don't know what I'm passionate about. And now I look back on that and I laugh, because it's like, oh, holy crap, I am like super passionate about the issues facing immigrants and refugees. And so, if you're sitting there feeling like you don't know what you're passionate about,
it'll come.
It'll come. And you can just start thinking about that now. You don't have to know. It's a process.
So
one part of...
Oh, go ahead, Matt.
I was going to say one part of our process as a company and as a person, I've been thinking through some of these things is if you decide that you care about something, you also have to really look internally a little bit and make sure you have your own house in order when it comes to these things.
Yes, sir.
As a company, we're a small team, and especially when I was starting out, I tapped friends and people that I knew and my personal network around building the team. And one day I looked around and I realized my marketing team was basically a bunch of 30-something white guys. And, those were the people that on one hand I knew, and on the other hand trusted me enough to work for me when I didn't know if my business was going to be successful or not. But, then we started thinking, do we need to speak up about, racial justice and equity in the workplace? And then looking around, we realized, we're not where we think we should be or where we want to be. And so coming out and having some opinions about these things, you also have to be, I think that's an important part of this, being sensitive. It's not enough for a person or a brand to just say, yeah, we care about this when it comes to being public, but then not doing the internal work of saying, what does that mean to us as a company? It's so easy to post on LinkedIn.
Yes.
It's hard. And what I'd say for myself is we know that there are areas we need to grow in, and we want to move in that direction. Yeah. But you should be really aware, don't.
And if you're not
rocks,
aware,
right?
other people probably are.
Absolutely.
I need to find the Instagram account, and we'll share it in the show notes. But there was an Instagram account that came out specifically focused on the beauty industry, but 2020 George Floyd, there were a lot of statements being made, platitudes around racial justice and stuff, and this Instagram account started in beauty and expanded into big business in general, but they looked at the folks who were talking about how important racial justice is, and they said, show us your boards. Report back to us on the makeup of your workforce, on the makeup of your board of directors, and pledge to do better once you inevitably tell us that your numbers are way off. And and they not only asked companies to do this, but they've stayed on them. After companies have pledged, okay, in the next year, in the next 3 years, we're going to be, actively recruiting these types of people, or we're going to change the makeup of our board this much. And they're holding feet to the fire, and people are watching, right? Yeah. And that's a really important thing. Matt, I love that point that you should not throw rocks from your glass house.
Right. Well, and sometimes, brands this is a good example of sometimes it's good to be quiet and watch and listen. Yes. But there's a tension, right? I would guess that there is a time when no matter how much room you still have to grow, a brand should speak up or decide to, make a stand a little bit more publicly as well, because this is where this challenge, I think, is for people and brands between, what is so important that you can't be silent about, because being silent is its own sort of complicity in certain circumstances.
Yes, it can be.
And it's its own statement, whether or not it's complicity.
Right.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
is the
especially
answer it's so hard?
on an issue. So on
Yeah.
the turmoil side of things, especially if you're saying nothing about anything, that's when, your absence can be conspicuous, especially if you're a larger brand. That one of the notes that I have here is, particularly with turmoil, particularly politicized turmoil, there's a difference between bigger brands who are either expected to say something or have set a precedent that they're an organization that does so. There's that set. Like REI is a really good example of a company that has put its foot down on a lot of different issues. They're a co-op, so they're big on advocating for their employees because it is an employee-owned company. But
Right.
they, back in 2019, I think, put out a statement after the Supreme Court. Remember when the Supreme Court was cool and they affirmed some core LGBTQ plus rights? They put out a really short but a statement nonetheless saying, we're really glad that the Supreme Court did this and we stand by this decision. We feel the same way. And then the president of REI made big news a few weeks back, putting out a statement and a lengthy LinkedIn post from her personal account saying, we are going to globally ensure that all of our employees who need it have access to abortion and reproductive care. And, really drew a line in the sand on that issue. And of course, there's stickiness around like, well, how are you really going to do that? Like, are you going to make people tell you that they're going to get an abortion? I don't know. That's a complex situation. The whole thing sucks. But it's, to see a brand like that setting an example like that, it's amazing.
Yeah.
And smaller businesses have different risk levels, right? Like,
Right.
you have to decide if you're willing to get political, if you have the appetite for controversy that might stir up. I'm reminded of back in our first episode, we had a fellow StoryBrand guide, Lynn Tickner, ask, when is it overkill? When are you just going overboard with the consideration of, things that might trigger people or things like that? And, you also have to decide, like Matt said, when are we just like reacting to every single thing? Like, when does it become something that like, okay, are we adding to the conversation? Are we just hopping on to the latest tragedy bandwagon, which is hideous to say, but it is something that some organizations will do. So you have to figure out, what do you care about? What is your line in the sand? What is the thing that you are not willing to shut up?
Right. And
about?
one of the things that you have to do once you do that is you have to figure out what's next. And the best way to avoid being reactive is to get proactive in deciding ahead of time, not just like how, like what you're going to say. Like, I'm not suggesting that you should brainstorm. It's not like obituaries, like for famous people where their obituaries written years in advance, and it's like, well, they're getting a little closer to death. We better update this.
We should
with their
probably
latest
update this.
movies.
By the way,
so I'm not
my grandmother and grandfather both wrote their obituaries like 20 years before they died.
Yeah.
That's for
Was there a
another
gap?
episode, but
Yeah. So I'm
That
not
is-
suggesting it's that kind of proactiveness, but what
Right.
let's talk about, Paige, what are some proactive practical steps that businesses of all different sizes can take to say, when something happens, I know, and it's something that I'm passionate about, and I feel like it's something I should say something about, then what? How do brands decide what's after that?
So, yeah, there's the statement or the pausing of activities and then entering into the conversation. So there are a couple of different things. There's actually making a concrete contribution, right? Like actually having skin in the game, or you can also think about rallying your audience to action, right? And having them join you in this thing that's really important to them. By the way, this study was done back in 2017, I think. And again, we'll link to it in the show notes. But this study found that 78% of consumers want businesses to address important issues in the world. And 87% will actually purchase a product because a company advocated for an issue they care about. Yeah. So there's a business case here to be made for not just being a wallflower when, when the earth is scorched and we're all doomed. Right. I have feelings about all of this. So material contributions. So there's one way that I take issue with, and that's, like when you're at the grocery store and you're checking out and they say, oh, do you want to donate $5 to, help feed a family? Or that's great. It's great to help feed families. Okay. That's not what I'm saying. But that action is, in part, a way for them to take your money and get a tax write-off.
So that's not
which
what you're
might
talking
sound
about.
cynical.
It is.
But it is.
But fair.
But fair.
Because the reality is there are benefits to how we react as businesses in times like these. And I think it's really important. I think we're seeing examples of businesses making those decisions because they know it's going to be profitable for them, and only when it's profitable for them. And so what you can, as a business, you can do that. The question you have to wrestle with is, are you really making an impact on the world in like, is it a net positive that this is happening? Because, on the surface, like, money going towards people, feeding families that need it, like, hunger, even in the United States, is super important. There's a couple of really great commercials that Feeding America is running, and they're just killing it right now with
Feeding
their
America is
ad campaign.
Fantastic. No Kid Hungry as well.
Right. And like that the statistic is like 1 in 9 kids are going hungry in the United. So like, you just look around you in your neighborhood and you're like, oh, statistically there's a neighbor right around me that is experiencing hunger. And so you have to decide what to do about it. But so you as a business have to decide at some point if you are going to market for thinking, feeling humans. And I think I can speak for the three of us and say, this is what you have to make the decision to do, is you have to look at these moments of time where you have the opportunity to react or not. And you cannot, people do, and it sucks. You can't, as a company, react because it's profitable for you. You can't react because it's going to make you more money and then be like, well, I don't know, is this a tragedy that we can capitalize on and look like we're doing good? Great.
Yeah.
Like,
yes.
Barf. And the reality is not only is that gross, but your customers and your potential audience sees right through that.
Yeah, they're not stupid.
We are in an era where everybody can talk to everybody right now.
So what's the alternative then to the buy this thing and like will,
Performative.
or like,
you know.
yeah. So, donating proceeds from your sales, not your profits after you recoup, everything, like skin in the
right.
game, fam.
Right.
Donating net proceeds gross. Donating gross proceeds. I don't know. Matt, get your accountants on this. So donating.
This is what I care about.
To a cause that you're passionate about.
Making it one of the things you do first, not,
Yes.
hey, we've recouped our costs, we've spent, the money for costs of goods sold has happened,
Yep.
and now I'll give out of whatever that's left. Like, one of the things that I heard from someone years ago that I thought was really valuable is, and this was for like personal charity, like personal giving. And I think you can choose to let it apply to your business because businesses are made up of people, is that giving, when you are able to give, it should give until it hurts a little bit, because that's the skin in the game that Paige is talking about.
Yeah.
Don't give because it's convenient. Don't give because there's a benefit to you.
Give as much as you can,
Give as
not
much as
as
you
little
can.
as you can.
And then a little bit more.
Yeah. That's a really good point. And the level up bonus here is when you've had the forethought to think about the things that you care about, put a policy in place, put it on your website, say every year we give X amount from our business to this organization, or, we have an initiative, these are the things that we care about. This is the way that we're contributing to the things that we
Right.
care about.
Right.
Don't do it when it's hip.
Right.
So, and that goes for regular people too, like
Absolutely.
political action committees, campaign. Oh my God. The capitalization on tragedy of political campaigns is appalling. And if any political marketers are listening to this podcast right now, first of all, shame on you. Second of all, really, no, shame on you. Okay, that's all.
Yeah.
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 So, Matt?
Oh, well, I was going to take this in a little bit of a different direction.
Go.
I think that the three of us, we're talking a lot about kind of the political side of things, right?
We are.
I think all three of us probably lean pretty far left politically. If we're in America. If you've seen the video, Paige is literally leaning outside of the frame of her camera right now.
Going outside the frame.
From my perspective, you're actually leaning right. So, just make sure you're, no.
I'm a commie, y'all.
Pretty much. But, it's not just about politics, but obviously when tragedy and turmoil come up, it's also very divisive, right? People are landing on both sides of those issues. And you as a business, if you decide to take a stand, I guess if you take it, there's a risk involved.
Yes.
And the other thing I'll say is that there are some people and individuals who find this is where it's a struggle for me. I don't want to see gun rights political content on LinkedIn, right? And I have this like internal personal feeling of like there are times when I feel like I should speak up even in a business forum about some things that other people are going to consider political, and they don't want to see that from me. And so underlying that, I think there is actual risk potentially in there.
Absolutely.
But I guess I would say that there's also a way I think there are ways as a person to be a principled person or a brand in what you talk about and say, this is where we are, this is where we stand. And we're not trying to say that's why we don't ever work with people who, own guns or, you know what I mean? Like, I think you can have a principled stand on something.
No?
And well, I mean, this is a whole nother episode, choosing who you work with and for marketers and brands and
how that reflects on you as a business.
Yeah. But we have clients who I know are all over the map politically. On one hand, I don't want that to hold me back from speaking out about the things that are important. And I think there are a lot of issues that are going to be political differences that isn't like a red line of like, okay, if you disagree with me on this issue, I can or can't work with you. So there's some nuance there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just
Here's
like
where my
finding
question
your
goes.
issues, find your line, right?
Yeah.
Find the line.
Well,
So
and
what about, can I just ask, like, what about the clients or the marketers out there who have different perspectives on this? Do you have different advice for someone who like disagrees or would come at some of the similar or different issues with kind of equal passion when it comes to what they should be and how they shouldn't be responding?
Well, I think, sorry, Paige, do you mind if I jump in really quick here? I was just going to say, I think it's really important. It goes back to the beginning of what we were talking about. And one of our fellow marketers and StoryBrand certified guides just wrote this in the chat, that it goes back to knowing what your brand stands for and how that's foundational to how you respond when something happens. So not only do you have to figure out how you're going to respond and then what, you have to know foundationally what's important to you to be able to move forward. And I think one thing that a lot of customers and people and your potential audience are looking for is not one-off action, but ongoing consistency that says they told us that was important to them. Now where is the fruit of that? Where is the action as a result of that statement that they made? Now what?
Yeah. So Sarah, who raised this point, made a reference to the CEO of Gravity Payments and says he's really vocal about workers' rights and fair wages, and he's very vocal about it on LinkedIn all the time, not just when there's big news around the issue. Notably, and this is Paige talking, notably, Gravity Payments is a tech business, right? And there have been, as of July 25th, roughly 40 bazillion tech industry layoffs in the past couple of months. And being an outspoken CEO around labor, workers' rights, good pay, is, God forbid, Gravity Payments has to do a round of big layoffs because he is going to get dragged.
Yeah.
And it would be a real shame to see that happen.
Right.
So
which is part of that risk that I think Matt is talking about.
So Matt, to answer your question, I think that the advice goes to either end or anywhere along the political spectrum. If when the Uvalde shooting happened and you were, if you were called to make a fat donation to the NRA, let them know, let people know. If you are a person who leans that way politically and you're still listening to this podcast, bless your heart. I love that there maybe is something in this podcast for people who don't think like me or like us politically. So, thank you for being here. I'm often real mean about folks like you, so I'm glad you're here listening. So yeah, I think that's a really good question, but I don't think that the advice changes if your political leanings aren't in alignment with the direction that our conversation has been headed in.
What?
Right.
I think about brands like Hobby Lobby or Chick-fil-A. There's
I try not to
something
think about them.
Well, I think part of it is there's a thing happening right now where brands want to be everything to all people, and then they don't end up having any clarity. And in some ways, there's a helpfulness for a brand to have some clarity around what they care about and stand for so that people can make informed decisions, so that they can, rather than hiding, there's a lot of brands who are spending a lot of money giving to politicians and then having completely different like public viewpoints and postings on things. And so maybe there's a little bit of something, maybe a little refreshing, where when a brand tells you what they are, you can at least then make
You
an
can believe
informed
them.
decision, even if you
Yes.
don't agree with them. And so that's where maybe we can even offer a little bit of kudos to brands who make that decision. There's some that I'll decide, I'm not gonna participate or buy from you because of that. But in a sense, we're saying the same thing about ourselves. Is if me being outspoken about Black Lives Matter movement means that you're not going to hire us as a marketing company because that's part of our perspective.
Right.
That's a decision that I'm very comfortable with,
Yep.
and I'm
Right.
happy that you
Just
know
qualified
that we're not a right
yourself
fit.
out. Congratulations.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's, that's part of my messaging, voice, and tone work is like, let's establish not just who your people are, but also who your people aren't. Like, I'm in the midst of redoing my website right now to revolve around radically empathetic marketing. And I got a lot of language on there that folks are going to have absolutely no confusion around, that they are welcome to find the exit if they don't like. And that's really important to me. I want people to know who I am before we even get on a discovery call, right? Like, let's not waste any of our time. You
Right.
can
Let's not have
easily-
this surprise later. Oh my
Right?
gosh, we're not compatible as companies working together. Like,
right.
you can know from the get-go, brands talk a lot about, and marketers talk even more about, because it's so a core of what we do, is helping companies pare down, like, not niche down, but like segment your audience so that you know who you're speaking to and who your customer you want to go after is. Like, that's a really great way to qualify some people either into or out of your business, because the reality is people do make those buying decisions. People do align with like-minded businesses. And so you have to decide, is this an area where I want to do that? And it may feel like taking a stand, but you're also going to have the benefit and the detractive nature of, my statement is going to make more people that are like-minded interested in me, and the reverse is also true, that people are going to leave. And so you just have to evaluate as a business how comfortable you are with that. And I would hope that you are comfortable with that, because I think that
That's integrity.
exactly. So much of what we're talking about comes down to intentionality in your business and in the words that you say, Paige, as we talk about some of the other ways that brands, like the what's next of it all, I think you have to be intentional about like where you advertise, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, and that's another place, especially with big businesses. There are often calls for businesses to, hey, what are you doing still advertising on Fox? And things like that, where, again, we're very into left-leaning territory, but, if it's an ultimately lucrative arena for your business, you have to decide, like, do I want my advertising budget to support the messages that are coming out of these media platforms?
Right.
And, there are so many ways to show that you have skin in the game. Matt, it was you wrote a post on LinkedIn, I don't know, maybe a month ago, about time versus money and how you can have skin in the game in a cause, not just by making a big donation, but also by giving your time, and how valuable a resource that can be. So, if, having a volunteer event, where, your whole team goes to, I don't even know, where your whole team engages in helping a community heal from something, or if your cause is hunger, going and helping your local food depository package up canned goods or something like that. Like, that's another way to say, hey, this is something we care about, and here is our material contribution to what's going on. Jose Andres and the World Kitchen in disaster response around the world. I know he did a ton of engagement in the Ukraine, at least at the beginning. I know, and these are all food industry people, but like Guy Fieri donated, came and cooked for first responders during the California wildfires and has stepped up big time. But that again is saying, like, hey, this is a thing I care about, and I am giving of myself in a way that I can be confident that I am actually helping by giving these people delicious food when they need it most, making them feel supported, and any time, money, etc. that I put toward this is time that I am not able to, directly invest in my capital B business, I guess.
Right.
So, and the other thing is simply raising awareness, right? Like, not just making it about you, but using your platform to raise awareness about, particularly about grassroots organizations. Like, the abortion thing is really close to my heart. So, like, I have seen so much, like, oh, X business is making a big ass donation to Planned Parenthood. Listen, Planned Parenthood is fine. Planned Parenthood has corporate underwriters. They have, honestly, they have corporate interests. Don't give money to Planned Parenthood. They're fine. But there are grassroots organizations where if you have the appetite for the potential controversy that will come out of this, signal boost the message of an organization like, say, the Chicago Abortion Fund, the Lilith Fund, grassroots organizations that know what they're doing, that are making a huge impact in their local areas. Like, figure out, is there a local connection that we, like, if your business has a local component to it, how can you really dig in, even if it is monetarily, and how can you help other people who may be feeling powerless or like they need another avenue to help them heal?
Yeah.
How can you help them with that? Yeah. So that can be another way to make a more material contribution. The other side of that is actually asking your audience, your prospective and current customers, hey, join us in having skin in the game. Raising awareness about or partnering with those grassroots organizations can be one important part of that too. Offering a donation match, offering, and this is a little iffy, but offering a discount or some sort of bonus for folks who make a donation, or can like send you a screenshot of whatever, or they've retweeted something, I don't know.
Right.
Offering an incentive to them and saying, hey, like, we don't want to take your dollars and put them toward our own tax benefit, or pile up our donations from your money, but like, hey, if you want to go out, make a contribution, like, we want to stand in solidarity with you in the only way we know how, which is giving you a discount code. Honestly, it's amazing. It's great. It's probably like in the low-hanging fruit territory, but it's still fruit.
Yeah.
It's probably delicious.
And I would say that if you have cultivated an audience that cares about a lot of the same things you do, maybe not to the extent that you do, but are interested, I wouldn't even call that low-hanging fruit, because even lower is just inviting people to come along with you on the journey that you're on and say, hey, this is important to us, we're giving, and you can do this too. Because one of the things that we talk about as StoryBrand certified guides and in the StoryBrand framework is how important a good call to action is. And that even if it feels like calls to action are not pushy sales tactics, they can be, but done well, even though you think your audience knows what you want them to do, people are begging us to invite them to do something.
Yes.
And people just don't want to burn the calories to think about what they should do next.
Yep.
If their reaction to your post is, yes, I totally agree, now what? The next natural step for you as a brand is to say, love that, here's what's now what, and giving them the opportunity to do something with you, whether or not you offer them a discount or whatever as an incentive. Sometimes the incentive is just inviting people to be a part of something, because all of us are looking to be a part of different things in our lives. And so if your audience resonates with the things that are important to you as a brand, inviting them into it can be as valuable as making a purchase, and maybe even more so, because if I know a brand is intentional, I'm going to want, like, the favorability aspect. I just saw a really great post from another StoryBrand guide, Clark Campbell, who was flying on Delta with his kids, and he posted about this on Instagram like yesterday, and said his daughter said, "Dad, are all Delta flight attendants that nice?" And he was like, no, anybody can have a bad day, right? Like, it's not like every person you're going to encounter, but by and large, the people who work for a company like Delta have a way about them that communicates in that way. And so his point with it was, even if the people that you're marketing to aren't your intended audience today, like, his kids aren't going to be buying Delta tickets anytime soon, right? They're young enough that that's not happening yet.
Becoming ingrained.
But you're building brand awareness with them through kindness. And there's literally nothing financial in the immediate for Delta in doing that, but the long term. We talk a lot about how much more valuable a long-term customer is than constantly having to go out and get new customers. If you can figure out a way to make your customers stick to your brand for the long term, you're going to have a lot more value with them in the long run. And so, just by being intentional as a brand, it doesn't even have, like, you may not see a boost in sales by doing some of this stuff right away, but over time you are becoming known. REI didn't just wake up and decide to start caring about this stuff. They've been doing it for a long time.
It's
and so
way
when people
under the surface in their iceberg.
Right. Exactly. So it goes back to what Sarah Hackman was talking about. It has to be to the core of who you are. It's not performative. It's a cultural shift for you as a brand.
I think that leads into my final, and I'm sensitive to time here, but I think that leads into my final point, that it really behooves us to remember that marketing at its very core is people communicating with other people. Yeah. And during times of tragedy and turmoil, it's really easy to feel isolated and hopeless and unmoored. And if we as businesses, as marketers, can remind people, hey, we're made up of humans. We're not just here to sell you, this tube of lipstick, or what? Where did lipstick come from, by the way? But like, we're not just here to sell you this thing or give you this service. Like, we see you. We know that you are being affected by this lived experience, because so are we. Creating community is not just important for our bottom lines. Like, it is important to help keep us afloat as humans. And I've been really fortunate in the past several months in particular to start attracting clients who care deeply about a lot of the same things that I do, who I can connect with as humans, and who are really eager to implement empathy into the work that they're doing. And at the times when the world feels darkest to me, it feels so soothing to be able to engage in client work with these people who show up with their whole humanity every day. And yeah, then and it doesn't feel as much like work. The ick factor is not there because they understand the people to people factor as well. So that is my closing point.
I don't know if you're working on this already, because I know you've put a lot of thought into this, but it seems like something that could be really helpful for a marketer or a brand, because we're thinking, how do we respond personally? How do we respond for our businesses? And then how do we think about this for our clients? Maybe we need there's like a checklist, like what happens next time the big thing that takes over the news cycle happens. What's the checklist that you as a brand are going to go down?
That.
Yeah.
And actually, here's the other one
Crisis
is
checklist.
you also need,
my goodness,
you also need the check yourself list, right? Like, because I think brand, like, what are we going to do? And then also, I feel like there's this companion list of like, is this performative? Is this for our own benefit? Am I personally ready to engage in this topic? So, I think that maybe there's a big one.
There's there's a topic that I didn't get into at the beginning. I just forgot to mention it. There's a concept known as newsjacking, where a business will stick their ass into an issue because they want to be relevant. They think they can make a statement. Pepsi comes to mind. I believe they had a Super Bowl commercial a few years ago that took place at a Black Lives Matter protest where the police were agitating, and Kendall Jenner walks through the crowd, a light-skinned woman of, I believe, Armenian descent, but essentially a white-passing woman, walks up to one of the cops and hands him a Pepsi.
Yeah, I remember that.
The idea that a carbonated beverage can bridge across difference and police violence. Boy, they heard about it.
Yeah.
To the point where they ended up pulling the ads. But on that checklist should be: are we genuinely engaging because we care, or are we newsjacking? Are we, self-servingly jumping into this issue because it is the cause célèbre of the moment? And I think that's a great idea. And we have actually a couple of branding professionals in the quote unquote audience today who I know.
No quotes necessary. They
No
are
quotes.
the audience.
They are the audience.
We're doing this live.
We're doing it live. Who, doing that deep dive into what is your brand's mission, their vision, their values, what is your why, what do you stand for? That's all part of a true branding work. And, so it's not just having a pretty logo, right? It's actually considering what are the underlying underpinnings of who you are as a business, and how are you going to let that drive you?
Right.
So Matt, free lead generator idea, guys. A checklist for how to show up next time there's something awful. Right. Probably tomorrow. And it doesn't even matter when you're listening to this. Probably tomorrow, something bad's going to happen.
Probably by the time we're done recording this, we're going to get off of this broadcast and realize there's something like, wow, it's a good thing we recorded this today because this
yikes.
happened.
We joke, but golly, there's stuff out there.
And speaking of finishing this broadcast and getting back to what's happening, we are doing these episodes live. We do record them live with audience members who are able to ask questions as we discuss these topics. And so we have a question from our audience that is, how do you balance showing up as your brand and respond to events connected to your brand's values versus processing the hard news as a human?
That is a question. And my instinct in answering it is you have to put on your oxygen mask first. Especially if you're showing up as a personal brand, absolutely do not feel pressured to say something because you think, you need to be on top of this issue. When the shooting in Uvalde took place, there was a lot of criticism of brands who didn't turn off their marketing automations. And yep, that sucks. It sucks that some unneeded automations went live in the hours, the days, whatever after the shooting took place. But I think it's also important to hold space for the fact that there are humans behind those marketing actions. And we don't know what that team, like the person who would have been responsible for clicking, hell no, don't activate automation, maybe they, realized that a bunch of kids died in the next town over and they were busy holding on to their children for dear life, right? And they didn't think, oh, maybe I should turn off that automation. So compassion for yourself, compassion for other people. It's not, we don't market in, or at least I hope we don't market in a 24-hour news cycle. We are building our brands, we are building relationships. We're building, we're building our businesses over the long term. And if you push yourself to be like the first company to make a statement about something, you have, a much higher chance of getting it wrong. And B, like, no one's handing out stickers for being the first person to have a say in something. So, if it's something it's important for you to show up on, as a consumer, I would much rather see a statement or an action take place a little bit later, and have it feel heartfelt and genuine, and give me a sense of brand continuity than worrying about getting something up in service of doing it.
And there's a balance to it for sure, because like that clock runs out at some point, right? You suddenly, like at a certain point, if you take too much time, you've missed the opportunity to make that statement in a way that's like you start to trail off on the effectiveness of that statement. But one of the most effective things, I love the idea page that you said of put on your oxygen mask first before helping others. Like, and to me, like I always laugh in the airline like safety card where it's always like a mom helping the kid with their mask, and it's like you think about that, and anybody that's a parent is like, I'm not putting my mask on first while my kid is like, you laugh about that, but also you are not, and this is true in marketing and this is true in our lives, you are not effective if you are not bringing everything to the table of
you
who
can't
you
pour
are.
from an empty cup.
Exactly.
All those,
and so
those tired phrases are super true.
They're tired because they're relatable, because we all experience it. And so one of the most effective things that I've seen a company do is have someone at the company, after something has happened, post something that says, we've got some big feelings about this and we're gonna get to it, but hang with us while we just process what's happening. And so that to me has been a really valuable way to say, this is important to us, but we want you to know that we're going to be thoughtful in how we respond. Give us a second. And then that is what gives your brand, as the people who work behind it, the opportunity to process that themselves and then come together and say, okay, what is the statement that we want to make as a business?
Yeah, acknowledging your humanity is never a bad idea.
Right.
Yeah. And,
Exactly.
Matt, to your point from earlier, if you feel called to make a statement about something like Black Lives Matter and you simultaneously realize like, hey, we're coming from a place of, huge white male privilege. We understand that we need to do better. What a great time to say, hey, we're committing to hiring more people, to contracting more, Black women, et cetera, designers to help us with projects. Like,
Right.
can be that can be a good thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
We should we should transition here
Yes.
to
Answered a
the
couple of
lighthearted
questions.
kind of end here. Someday we're just gonna have an episode that's about like, I don't know, sports or Simpsons episodes or something.
I think
something
I'm going to be
lighthearted.
out of town that day. Yeah. When is that?
Well, yeah, we'll see. Should we
Let's
should we
talk
shift
about
over
something
to-
that we can't stop thinking about.
Yeah, like that's what I'm
Matt,
thinking about.
Matt, what is something that you can't stop thinking about?
Well, I'm Paige. You can just hop off right now if you want.
It's time for a sports intermission, Matt.
No, it totally is. I'm not a great athlete. At some point, I kind of lost a little bit of interest in the NFL, and in the past 5 years or so, I've been really enjoying watching Premier League soccer. And so it's an interesting year. The season is starting early in August, and so I've been following a lot of Arsenal Football Club news, and so. It's bad when it's the off season and I have like 2 Arsenal podcasts that I'm listening to
Ooh.
each week, just learning about transfer news and things like that. But we got a new striker. They just signed a new left back. That's pretty interesting. I can just see your eyes glazing over. But that's pretty much the thing that I can't let go of right now. I've been following and excited for the
Sounds
new
awesome.
soccer season to start up. I watched a preseason
how about-
game the other day, and that was a lot of fun. So.
Nice. That's awesome. Paige, how about you?
How about me? I had something and it left me because I'm supposed to be hosting a copywriters club right now, and I'm like, time. It's a construct. It's fine. Yeah, man. I'm going on a vacation this week. I'm leaving for Cape Cod in a few days, and I am really just looking forward to a little getaway and breathing some different air, and I kind of can't stop thinking about how many oysters I'm going to eat. So I guess that's what's
amazing.
on my mind. Yeah. What about you,
amazing.
David? What are you thinking about?
One thing that I have not been able to stop thinking about, probably over the last couple of weeks, but especially this last week, a few weeks ago on the podcast, I talked about one thing that I couldn't stop thinking about, which was the opportunity through World Relief to partner with them and provide a space in your home for refugees that need a place like temporarily as they're on their journey, either requesting asylum or a refugee being resettled somewhere. Homes are needed to have these people in places. And I've had, as a result of that, we've gotten involved with that. And what I can't stop thinking about are the number of families that I've met just through a family that's staying with us. They feel this way. And pretty much every family I've met that is a refugee in a refugee situation coming here to the United States is that they say, we can't wait to get where we're going because we can't wait to start working to help other people. And so one of the things that we hear a lot about culturally in the United States is that refugees and immigrants are here to use the services that our government provides and whatever. And there's a whole political basket of snakes to talk about in that. But like, just I can't stop thinking about that. These families are just like, put us to work. Let's do this. Let's help others. And that they're so passionate about that and how cool that is.
That's awesome.
That's just it. The reality is, one of the things that's always going to be happening around us in the marketing, where our world is at today, and especially as it relates to our marketing, is that there is always going to be tragedy and turmoil. You are always going to be able to queue up this episode and have it be relevant because there's going to be something that is happening around us, whether you're listening to that today in July of 2022 or 10 years from now or 50 years from now, that's going to be relevant. And so as businesses, let's be intentional. We are thinking, feeling humans, both on the marketing side, and we are thinking, feeling humans as customers and potential audience. So
Correct.
that is why we've started this podcast. We are 3 marketers that really do believe that there's a way to market our businesses ethically and effectively at the same time.
And
So
empathetically.
And empathetically. Thank you. Empathetically, effectively, all the E's.
All the E's. I love
Yeah.
repeating letters in my copy. That's not
Absolutely.
a tired thing at all.
Yeah.
This was awesome,
Well,
guys.
that is it. That is it for this week. I'm David Hepburn.
I'm Matt Banker.
I'm Paige Worthy, and you can find all the things that you want on our website, hellofirstnamepod.com, and please rate us, review us, and subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts. Thanks for
We'll
coming.
see you next time.
I am